June 13, 2023, San Diego State University President Adela de la Torre authorizes a letter that is supposed to be a strategic masterpiece. The goal is simple: save the university $17 million. She hits send, delivering the message to the Mountain West Conference. But instead of saving millions, that single document accidentally triggers a financial bomb. See, the letter states that the university intends to resign from the conference. The administration believes they are starting a negotiation, buying time to finalize a move to the Pac-12, but the conference commissioner Gloria Nevarez reads it differently. She doesn't see an opening for debate. She interprets the letter as a formal, irreversible departure. Instantly, $17 million is put on the line. The conference decides to play hardball, trapping their star member in a legal nightmare using their own bylaws. But to understand how a vague email becomes a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, you first need to understand the unique currency of college sports. Let's look at the financial mechanics here. In the world of collegiate athletics, teams don't just play for trophies, they play for units. An NCAA tournament unit is a financial reward system where conferences earn revenue shares based on how well their teams perform in March Madness. But here's the catch: the money isn't paid out as a lump sum. It is paid out over a rolling 6-year period. This creates a golden handcuffs effect. If a school leaves the conference, they usually forfeit their claim to those future payouts, leaving millions on the table that they technically earned on the court. Then you have the exit fee. In the Mountain West, this isn't a fixed number like a speeding ticket. It is a variable calculation tied directly to the conference's total revenue. Specifically, the fee is a multiple of the annual distribution paid to member schools. This creates a fascinating correlation. As conference revenue rises, usually because its teams are winning, the cost to leave rises with it. The math works against the successful schools. If you win more games, the conference makes more money, the average distribution goes up, and your exit fee gets more expensive. You are effectively funding the wall that keeps you inside. By the summer of 2023, San Diego State had been so successful that the calculation for their exit fee had ballooned to roughly $17 million. But there was a critical deadline approaching. Under the contract, that price tag was about to double, and that pressure is exactly what led SDSU to try and outsmart the system. This brings us back to the summer of 2023. To understand the trap, you have to look at the calendar. The Mountain West bylaws have a strict deadline, June 30. If a school gives notice of resignation before June 30, the exit fee is calculated at 3x the average annual distribution, roughly $17 million. If notice is given after June 30, the penalty doubles to 6x the average annual distribution, a staggering $34 million. They were waiting for an invite from the Pac-12, but the Pac-12's media deal wasn't finished. They didn't want to commit to leaving until they had a safe landing spot, but they couldn't afford to wait past June 30 and risk the fee doubling, so they tried to thread the needle. The June 13 letter was carefully worded. It didn't say "we resign," it said the university intends to resign, and crucially, it asked for a 1-month extension on the June 30 deadline. They wanted to lock in the $17 million rate while buying an extra 30 days to see if the Pac-12 deal would materialize. The Mountain West Conference saw right through it. They looked at their handbook, specifically section 1.04 regarding membership resignation. The bylaws are rigid, they don't have a clause for intent or extensions. The conference commissioner responded immediately, rejecting the extension and accepting the resignation effective immediately. They called SDSU's bluff. They essentially said, "You told us you're leaving, so you're gone. And by the way, you owe us the money." Then SDSU lost control of the narrative. On June 16th, Pete Thamel at ESPN broke the story, leaking the details of the dispute to the public. This was catastrophic for SDSU's leverage. Now the whole world, including the Pac-12, knew SDSU was desperate. The Pac-12, dealing with their own crisis, didn't extend an invite in time. The June 30 deadline was ticking down, and SDSU was effectively homeless. Panic set in. With no invite coming, SDSU had to scramble. On June 30, the very last day before the fee would technically double, they sent a new letter attempting to rescind the resignation. They basically said, "Never mind, we're staying." But the Mountain West wasn't interested in letting them off the hook. They refused to accept the retraction without penalties. They argued that SDSU had already resigned, and to stay, they would essentially have to rejoin the conference. The conference held all the cards. They had the bylaws, they had the resignation letter, and thanks to the structure of the payouts, they had access to SDSU's cash flow. They didn't just refuse to let them stay for free. They decided to use SDSU's own money to pay the bill. Here is the cruelest irony of this entire saga. San Diego State's own excellence on the basketball court is exactly what forged the chains that bound them to the conference. Just months before this legal disaster, the Aztecs had made a historic run to the national championship game. It was a moment of glory that brought unprecedented visibility and revenue to the Mountain West. But in the twisted economics of college athletics, that victory backfired. Because the exit fee is calculated based on the average annual distribution, every dollar SDSU earned for the conference by winning tournament games actually raised the average. By generating millions in revenue for the league, they mathematically inflated the cost of their own freedom. They were effectively funding their own ransom. The better they played, the more expensive it became to leave. But the conference wasn't done applying pressure. While the lawyers argued over whether the resignation was valid, the Mountain West decided to hit SDSU where it hurts most, the bank account. In July, the conference was scheduled to distribute a payment of roughly $6.6 million to the university. This was money SDSU had already budgeted for, funds needed for coaching salaries, scholarships, and facility operations. The Mountain West withheld the payment. Their legal justification was ruthless. They claimed that since SDSU owed a $17 million exit fee, the conference had the right to hold the $6 million as a deposit or a set-off against the debt. It was a classic hostage situation. The conference essentially said, "We know you dispute the exit fee, so we're going to keep your paycheck until you agree to our terms." This triggered an immediate cash flow crisis. Athletic departments, even successful ones, often run on razor-thin margins. You cannot simply lose $6 million of liquid cash overnight without consequences. It forced the university administration into a corner. They weren't negotiating from a position of power anymore. They were negotiating for liquidity. They needed that cash to operate. The conference had successfully weaponized the calendar and the ledger, forcing SDSU to come to the table not as a power player, but as a debtor, desperate to keep the lights on. Trapped in the Mountain West with their cash frozen, the university leadership had to run a cold, hard calculation. Was leaving still worth the price tag? They had to model the return on investment for a potential move to the new Pac-12, assuming that conference could even survive. The math looked like this. Staying in the Mountain West guaranteed a safe but relatively low payout of about $5 to $7 million per year. The Pac-12, however, was trying to secure a new media rights deal. Market estimates at the time projected that a rebuilt Pac-12 could offer payouts between $20 and $30 million annually per school. This created two distinct scenarios for the university's financial planners. First, the optimist scenario. If the Pac-12 secured a media deal paying $30 million a year, the math was a no-brainer. Even if SDSU had to pay the $17 million penalty, the revenue jump was so massive that they would pay off the exit fee in less than 1 year of membership. In this model, the trap was just a temporary speed bump on the road to riches. But then there was the conservative scenario. This was the nightmare model. It assumed the Pac-12 struggled to find a broadcast partner, leading to a deal worth only $10 or $12 million. In this version, after factoring in legal fees, travel costs, and the $17 million debt, the break-even point stretched out to 5 years or more. The decision hinged on amortization. How long were they willing to be in the red to chase a higher ceiling? Ultimately, the risk of stagnation in the Mountain West was viewed as greater than the risk of debt. They realized that in modern sports, you have to spend money to make money, even if that means paying a ransom to your old partners just to get a seat at the new table. This entire chaotic saga provides a masterclass for anyone looking to enter the high-stakes world of the sports business. There are 3 critical career takeaways here. First, scrutinize notice clauses. SDSU's ambiguity costs them leverage. In contract law, intent is not the same as action, and that gray area is where you get sued. Second, master cash flow. Understanding when the money hits the account is just as important as the total amount. SDSU ignored the timing of their distribution check, and it crippled their negotiation. And finally, lesson 3, negotiate the exit up front. The best time to plan a divorce is before the wedding. SDSU proved that in modern college sports, you aren't just a team, you are a portfolio asset. If you want to control your destiny, you need to read the fine print before the game even starts. That decision changed everything. The conference alignment never truly recovered from the distrust zone that summer. If you want to understand the business behind the scoreboard, subscribe for more untold stories.